Welcome to our magic loop video. To start the magic loop method of circular knitting, you need a minimum 32-inch cord from tip to tip. I prefer a 40-inch and I'll show you why. But first, let's cast on your stitches. So cast on the required amount of stitches that your pattern is calling for. Then you're going to slide those stitches to the end of your needle. You're going to find the approximate middle. You're going to split your stitches into your cord and you're going to pull them in half. You're going to slide them to the front of your needle. Don't worry about this splitting or stretching your stitches. It all melds into place later. So you're going to squish those stitches on there, holding your needles parallel. Your back needle is going to have your working yarn. Once you've got all your stitches parallel, you're going to want to make sure that there's no twist. So I like to make sure that my cast on edge is pointing inside. Once you've double checked that, you're going to take your back needle and you're going to pull it out and you're going to reveal your first loop. Make sure your working yarn is above your needle and you're going to insert your needle into your first stitch and then just knit as normal. As you're knitting, you may find it handy to keep your thumb inside the first loop to hold your needle. And here's your second loop as you're knitting along. And it just nicely sits in place. We're now coming to our last stitch. You can knit that. I just let that one fall. I turn my work. I hold on to my back needle now, and I'm just gonna pull this front needle. I kind of pull that a little bit forward so the stitches don't fall off or accidentally grab the wrong needle and it comes sliding out your stitches. And again, now your working yarn is on your back needle. Needles are parallel. I'm going to pull this needle. I've got my two loops and I start the process all over again, knitting away. The reason I like the 40-inch cord because I get a bigger loop. So it's a little bit easier and gentler on these last stitches so you don't get any laddering, and that's one of the nicest things with the magic loop. One trick is that if you can, make sure that your last stitch that you're knitting is the purl stitch. That way when you start your next stitch on your next row, you start with a knit stitch. It's just a little bit easier when it comes to bringing your yarn forward and you don't have to figure out where your yarn has to be when you're purling that stitch. That's as complicated as the magic loop gets, but it's a tool that every knitter should have in their toolbox because it's not just for socks. You can use it on necklines of sweaters, wrist warmers, mittens. You can use it as the decrease in the top of your hat when it gets too small and too tight on another circular or a double pointed needle. And of course, socks. I hope this has been helpful. Happy magic looping. Okay. Okay.